I'm Dawn Monofusco, and this is Right Because It Matters. And today we have Sage Cohen. She's the author of the nonfiction books Writing the Life Poetic, The Productive Writer, and Fierce on the Page, and also the poetry collection Like the Heart, the World. Sage has been sought out as a literary instructor, writing coach, presenter, performer, and judge. She offers strategies and support for writers at pathofpossibility.com and for divorcing parents at radicaldivorce.com. Hi, Sage.
Hi.
So let's just jump right in. Tell us how you became a writer and how you got to where you are today.
I kind of feel like writing chose me. It was my way of navigating experience and trying to translate my journey, make sense of experience and sort of mine it for wisdom. So it was something that I did for years before I understood that was my practice.
Wow.
And then when I kind of became conscious that, wow, I'm writing poems every day, maybe I'm a poet. I kind of took my education as a poet seriously at that point, and then pursued a graduate MFA program, and that kind of launched me as in the identity as poet, writer.
Wow. Well, you were just writing in your, did the poetry just like come out of you when you were writing in your journals as a kid, or?
Yeah, it was about age 13 or 14 that I was just, that was my place. My notebook was my place of reflection and contemplation. And it was about a decade before it occurred to me that's what I was doing. That was my practice. It was kind of like breathing.
Wow.
It's just my way.
Yeah. That's awesome. I hear that a lot. Writers can tell each other, in the room or in a coffee shop, obviously, because they're writing. They don't stop.
That's right.
On your website, you say, "I believe that telling the truth is the most important choice we can make in reclaiming our lives." Can you tell us how writing allows you to tell the truth?
Writing is a way that we get to witness ourselves and sort of give ourselves the best possible listening and reflection. And Flannery O'Connor has a famous quote where she says, "I write because I don't know what I think until I read what I say."
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And I kind of feel that way. A lot of times writing is the way that I take in what's happening, and when I see what's come through me on the page, it helps clarify my position or my feelings even. So that kind of authenticity, that kind of channel for authenticity has helped me make choices about who I'm going to be and how I'm going to behave. And it's sort of like an intermediary point between experience and action. Like, what is the truth for me?
Yeah.
Proceed.
I think it was, who was it? It was not, I think it was Anne Lamott. Anne Lamott, did she write Bird by Bird?
Yes.
Yeah. She writes, the writer must expose the unexposed. There's a line in there. Do you ever feel that you've exposed too much?
All the time. When I started blogging, I didn't think I would physically survive sharing anything. And so I made myself do it every day until I saw I was still alive. But what I always tell my students and people that I work with is that, exposing the unexposed can be a private matter. What's most important is that you do it for yourself. Who you decide to share it with after that is kind of part two. The healing and the transformation happens in just getting it on the page.
Yes.
And then we have we don't need to tell the world show them those exposed places unless there's a good reason to do so and we feel ready.
Got it. Nice. I love that. Why poetry? For you?
It felt like a big enough canvas for me. That it was, what I love about poetry is it's something I can never solve. It's something I will spend the rest of my life kind of floundering around in. And that is really interesting to me. There is no right and wrong in poetry. There's just where am I going right now, and how can I find my way? What does this poem want? What is the opportunity right now in this moment, in this stanza, and this line? And so it's spacious enough and it's undefined enough that it's just endlessly interesting to me.
And I love that. I think the irony is it's endlessly interesting to almost anyone, really, even if they make fun of you. Because I definitely, I went to school for fiction, my MFA in fiction, switched genres to, did, nonfiction and poetry, and I made jokes like, oh, what am I going to be, a poet? And I would make fun of the poetry people. And the irony was that my poetry got published, and then I became more a poet. That's my predominant writing style. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not really happening, right? And then, but then when I did the research, I realized, I think David Whyte talks about it very specifically. In grief, we have poetry. At weddings, we have poetry. In celebration, we have poetry. And God love David Whyte, in corporate America, he brought poetry.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how poetry really does infuse just about everything, as far as I'm concerned? I don't know how you feel about that.
I feel that way too. I feel like poetry is the most, it's the most powerful medicine I have. It's alchemical. We take in a poem that someone else has written that is appropriate for that moment in time, and it changes how we see and experience that moment. There's a Jack Gilbert poem called Failing and Flying, in which he says, the marriage, how can you call the marriage a failure? The marriage ended and he declares it a triumph.
Oh, wow, that's
and
awesome.
Poetry is the space that we move from failure to triumph in a handful of lines.
Yes.
And we take ourselves there, whether we've written it or we're reading it. And it's just, I have not experienced any other path that can create such immediate transformation.
Agreed. I actually challenge people when they say, oh, I don't write poetry. Don't tell me that, because then I'm going to sit you down and show you that you do write poetry. Do you feel that way? Does someone ever come to you and say, oh, I'm not a poet? And then you go, actually, here's a couple of exercises. What do you think? And when they go, whoa, I didn't even think that this was allowed, kind of. Their thoughts were allowed in those ways. And I don't mean like dangerous thoughts. I mean just in the way they were formed on the page.
Yeah.
Do you run into that?
I run it absolutely all the time. I mean, that was a big part for me of writing my book, Writing the Life Poetic, is that people have so much fear about poetry, and they feel it's not for them for all kinds of reasons. They're not smart enough. They're not interesting enough. They don't know how it works. They feel like they're an outsider and that it's not available to them. And so they're not willing to try. And it's hard to discover what's available to you if you're too scared to try.
Well, I love what you say in the description of your book, Writing the Life Poetic. You say that the book puts poetry back into the hands of the people, not because they're aspiring to become the poet laureate of the United States, but because poetry is one of the great pleasures in life. And I cannot thank you enough for that quote. And that goes right into what we're saying. Yeah, you're putting it back into the hands of the people. What happens when you do that? Have you seen the oh, wow.
I just taught a workshop last week in the Chinese Gardens here in Portland, and it was called Making the Crossing, and it was specifically for people in transition, and we're all in transition all the time.
Agreed.
We're all constantly changing. And I don't know who there identified as a poet when they walked in. There were a handful of people who just happened to be in the garden and wandered in and sat down. And I watched people in the space of that hour and a half. There were 4 writing prompts. They wrote themselves. One woman came up to me and said, I believed I was a failure when I walked in here.
Wow.
And I don't believe that anymore. In tears when she left. And that's what can happen in the space of a poem.
Yeah.
That's why poetry is, that's why that's why it's my lens. That's
I love it.
It's the path that I keep coming back to.
That's fantastic. What a great story. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's jump in your new book, The Productive Writer, you say. The creative process can be treacherous. I, again, can't thank you enough for just saying that. What's your take on this? Because I hear this a lot in myself, but when we were kids, I mean, literally, my mom gave me a typewriter when I was like 8, and I was like, apples fall from the tree, but they didn't hit me, and what do you see? And then I ripped it out, and I ran over to her, I was like, hey, I wrote this, And then as time went on, I was like, oh. So what do you think happens to us that it becomes so treacherous?
Well, I think a couple things happen to us. One is that we, with the best of intentions for ourselves, we start looking to our heroes and guides to see what they do, and then we impose that on ourselves.
True that.
Which may or may not work. It's what works for Stephen King may not be what works for me, and what gives him his results is not going to be what's going to give me my results. And so there's this process of discovering who we are. There's an opportunity for the process of who am I, what are my habits and attitudes and strengths and challenges, where we have to really get clear about our own paradigm and where we want to move it. So I think that we can get tangled up in that. Mm-hmm. And then there's also, we bring the outside world in too early, I think. Mm-hmm. There's that freedom as a child. We're not worrying if the editor's going to publish it or if the readers are going to think we're smart. We're just creating because there's this thrill and pleasure of creating. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a risk that we run. It's so easy to put ourselves out there now, to publish something immediately and sort of invite the world in before we may be ready. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. To really think about what, how do we protect the sacred space of creation and ready ourselves and our work for sharing, so that we don't have that Greek chorus of critics with us in the room before it's time.
Writing is very different than, say, marketing, because I know that with the internet and with blogging and with everything, and I do a lot of work in marketing, they say if you're not embarrassed by your first launch, you've launched too late. That's a very different world, though. And so when it's funny to go back into the depth of the writing process, you don't have to release too soon. And we're not going away. The audience is not going anywhere. The audience will be there. And so I feel like there's this tension of, I'm too late. I get that. What do you do when someone comes to you in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 40s and says, it's too late for me?
My feeling is that what we need most is to be connected to why we love what we're doing. Mm-hmm. It's a very internal, it's never too late to love what you're doing. Whether or not anyone else wants to buy it, wants to read it, wants to participate in the commerce of what we're doing is a secondary issue. Mm-hmm. We can all sit down and read a poem and fall in love with poetry today and have it matter profoundly, and write a few lines and get a foothold into a practice. Mm-hmm. I think looking at things, I try to steer my thinking to what is going to keep me engaged and thrilled with what I'm doing right now. Mm-hmm. And so I work hard to not allow myself to think what other people are doing and they're having more success than I am, and I should have started this 30 years ago, and if only I'd quit coffee, I would have, we can endlessly spiral on how we could have done it better. Yes. But we're here right now, and we have a choice to make about how we can do it right now.
Yes. I love that. Excellent answer. Excellent answer, actually. So, I mean, I was like, that makes me feel good. I was like, oh, my heart feels so much better right now.
Mine too.
And here, as a poet, I imagine that poetry's gotten you through some tough times. Can you talk about how healing it is to write poetry for you?
Yes, I can. A couple years ago, I wrote myself through my divorce. Mm-hmm. It was so powerful to have a practice that I could turn to that allowed me to kind of choose my position of how I was going to move through it. And I had sort of different stages. I had a phase called the Rage Diaries, where I just let it rip. And I wrote in a different way than I'm the kind of person who tends to look for the happy ending and the tidy bow of insight and wisdom at the end, and to sort of steer myself there. And so I had this phase where that was not, it was just the raw emotion.
Wow.
And then I moved from there through kind of different phases and made some decisions about, okay, I'm going to start looking for once the grief had been completed, where's the gratitude, where's the discovery, where am I headed with this loss? How is it going to be generative for me? Mm-hmm. And all of that was available to me through the writing of poems. So I think it's really important not to rush the grieving. It's I just heard the other day a quote from Buddha where he said, try to capture it right. Grief is the medicine we need to release our attachments.
Oh, wow.
And so to really embrace that, embrace the grief as part of the path.
Yes.
Until we've completed that, we don't have alternatives. We can't choose our position. We can't reframe things for ourselves.
Totally. Actually, that's very true.
And poetry, there are all kinds of practices. For me, it's poetry. Mm-hmm. And I think for many people, it can be poetry.
That's amazing. Perfect. I love this. So I mean, okay, I love poetry, so maybe I'm a little partial to this interview, but it's awesome. Your newest book, which I'm so excited about, Fierce on the Page, is available for pre-order now. What does it mean to you to be fierce on the page, and what does this book offer for writers?
So for me, Fierce on the Page is the intersection of doing our best work and living our best life. And that sort of cross-fertilization of how each one kind of lifts us up higher and higher to make our greatest contribution. So kind of looking to writing as the path for living and life as the path for writing, and to be constantly sourcing our wisdom and insight about who we are and what we're doing, and to have that kind of confluence of practice, life practice and writing practice.
Oh, I love it. That title is badass, by the way.
Thank you.
I know you're committed to helping divorcing parents, move from grief to growth with this radical divorce project that you have. How do you think writing can help people heal from... Well, you just told us that, so let's cut there. So let's say, I'm going to say, can you tell us more about the Radical Divorce Project? Does that work? And or do you want me to go into that again? Or do you want to naturally go into the writing healing for the Radical Divorce Project?
Yeah, I can talk about it for a minute.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it's badass, so we'll laugh.
Woohoo!
I know you're committed to helping divorcing parents move from grief to growth. And you have the Radical Divorce Project. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. Yes. So I was, my divorce process began in 2010. And in 2011, when the divorce happened, I made a decision that this was going to be the healing opportunity of a lifetime, that I was going to sort of start at ground zero and look for opportunities to rebuild my life very intentionally from that place. And I developed all kinds of systems and strategies for kind of reorienting myself with my co-parent and rebuilding our family. And I wrote vows to him and to his new wife and to my son and to myself. And it's a whole process that when I came through the other side, I was very motivated to help share.
Wow.
With other people, to help them orient, ideally more quickly, to help people move along more quickly, help them figure out where they want, the stand that they want to take for their families and for themselves as they move through that threshold.
That's fun. And you use writing in that project as well.
Yeah, I mean, my kind of tagline for myself, the distillation of what I believe, is that when you change your story, you change your life. And that we, especially when we're in difficult transitions like a divorce, we tend to hold on to these kind of victim-y stories. This happened to me, and that's what it is. And we don't realize that that's a story that we've chosen to tell, and that we have other choices. And we can say, wow, this man that was my husband is this incredible teacher who is reflecting back to me all of the places in myself that need attention to heal.
Yes.
And what a gift. Instead of, I could share with you the various other interpretations I had along the way. And I just find them less and less true because I've chosen a new story and it steers me that way. And so I think when we remember that we are the authors of the story, that, we're not living in our lives, we're living in the stories that we tell.
Wow. And
we get to choose those stories. So we can be the victim or we can be the victor. And we can be full of blame or we can be full of gratitude that we're learning who we are and what we need through these really difficult thresholds.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. That was great. Anything else you want to tell the audience about writing, about what you do, about anything going on?
Oh gosh, I just feel so grateful. I'm so delighted to be talking with you and so delighted that the writing life is available to anyone who wants it.
Yes.
Go get it.
Oh, actually, let's pause there for a second. What about self-publishing? Tell us a little bit about how you feel about self-publishing in terms of, now is in a very exciting time in the world to be writing. Some people don't realize that. You can go lots of avenues, but it's okay to self-publish.
Oh, absolutely. I think, and I get these questions a lot from people. Should I traditionally publish? Should I self-publish? And I think it really depends on what your objective is. Are you wanting, let's say it's a poetry collection, are you wanting to have something in hand next month to sell at your, at the readings you're going to be doing? Is it more important that you have some publisher kind of validate you because you want a university teaching job? What are, kind of understanding what your personal and professional goals are can really help shape the trajectory of publishing. Is it even important to publish? Is publishing a priority right now? We all tend to think we have to make that happen really fast. Yes. And I have a poetry collection that came through this divorce process that, thank God, I did not publish as it was taking shape. I thought it was done. I had a publisher, and I just decided to hold. And it changed, and it became much more complete and balanced as it grew. And so I think the first question is it time to publish? And then what am I wanting to accomplish with publication? How do I want it to serve me in my writing life and my life? And then what are the channels?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, perfect answer. I think that's very clear for people.
I want to recommend a resource. Jane Friedman was my editor for Writing the Life Poetic, and I think she is just an incredible expert in exploring some of those questions of how to publish, when to publish, what the right path is depending on what you are striving for.
Perfect. Yeah, that's the thing. Reach out. I'm trying to, with the summit, have people reach out and encourage them to ask people, go to the experts, find out what's going on. Well, finally, you have a great free gift to wrap up the summit with. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. I would love to offer folks, I have a 20-page workbook. It's called Productivity Power Tools. And it's a range of exercises and really fun planning tools for kind of naming what your writing goals are and kind of mapping out how you're going to get there. And also tracking your successes along the way and even engaging with and kind of talking yourself down from the cliff with fear. So you're kind of setting goals and tracking and following yourself from goal to success.
Love it.
And it's available at my website. It's pathofpossibility.com/power tools.
Cool. And I'll have all the links on this page. So it'll be great. Perfect. Well, thanks so much, Sage. This has been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I really loved it.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait till next time. I'm sure we'll do it again. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
You too.